Um, I live in Kentucky, and for several years, God has shown me things, allowed me to see things, and allowed me to understand things. I was in the Assemblies Church for many years. Well, back in 1998, let's deal with one issue at a time. So this will be part one of what God is showing me for the times that we're in and getting ready to go into. And I believe that it's accurate. We will only know if it comes to pass. The biblical text says that if a man comes into your midst and he speaks a thing, and the thing which he speaks does not come to pass, the Bible says, don't fear this man, for he speaks out of his own spirit. But if a man comes into your midst and he speaks, and what he speaks comes to pass, then know that a prophet was in your midst. I do not call myself a prophet. Some people say that's what I am. I simply say I'm a servant of the Most High God. So let's just keep it at that. Not really necessary that you know who I am or what I am or anything else. There are many people out there who know who I am and are aware of many of the prophecies that God has allowed me to speak down through the years, especially in the assemblies. So we'll just leave it at that. Let's get into what I want to give you today on part one of Interview with a Prophet. And let's deal with Donald Trump first. Back in 1997, I was an associate pastor at Assemblies Church in Burkesville, Kentucky. Brother Gary Stommel was the pastor there at that time. And I saw a magazine that had Donald Trump's picture on it. It was Time magazine. I think it was the name of the magazine. I didn't keep it. And as soon as I saw it and picked it up, the Lord spoke to me and told me that Donald Trump was going to be president of the United States. And I took it and I showed my pastor, and I told him what the Lord had told me. And we discussed, because Donald Trump was a businessman, and we're thinking, I was thinking at the time, God says Donald Trump's going to become president. He's a businessman. I wasn't sure that at that time that was good for our country or not. And so, but I had other things going on, and so I didn't think much about it. So when the election came up and Donald Trump didn't run, then my pastor comes to me and kind of ribbed me about it. Well, you said Donald Trump was going to be president. And I said, that's exactly what God told me. He said, but he didn't even run. And he's not given any indication that he's going to run. So I just shucked it, left it, didn't say anything else about it until this election and Donald Trump was on the ticket. We were watching him very close because I knew what God had told me. My new pastor called me up right about the time of the election. God had shown her some things that Donald Trump was going to be president, going to win that election, and she wanted to know what I thought about it. And I said, well, if God has his way about it, Donald Trump will be the president. If Hillary Clinton and her group have anything to do with it and they can sway the American people, then Hillary would be the president. But I said Hillary would be bad for the country. Donald Trump is the man of the hour that God has put his hand upon. So now Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and we have the liberals, and we have a lot of people that are coming against him. One of the reasons for that is that God is the one who has appointed Donald Trump to his position. Yes, he was sworn in as president of the United States, but it was God himself who put Donald Trump where he's at. Donald Trump set him aside. God set him aside. You set Donald Trump aside. God's hand is upon him. And maybe Donald Trump is a little rough around the edges in places, and maybe he's not got as close to God where we think, not myself, but the public thinks that he should be. But I know in my heart what God has told me about Donald Trump. God told me that Donald Trump was his man, and that he is the one who set Donald Trump where he is, and that he will whisper in Donald Trump's ear, and Donald Trump will listen, and that Donald Trump will slowly begin to get closer and closer to God as he realizes who it is, his source of authority and his source of a positioning, and who he must put his faith in, And Donald's going to evolve and change over this period of time to become more than what people think that he's going to become. Donald Trump, before this is over with, he will be much loved by the people, and the people will surround him and they will support him, and he will win the next election. He will be president for 2 terms. And I asked the Lord, this wall seems to be a contention. And I know we talk about the wall being protection for our borders. And I asked the Lord about that. In the last 3 days, God's been waking me up at 4:30 in the morning and has been speaking to me in my spirit about things. And I've asked him questions about things, and he's been answering me. And I asked him about the wall. And God said that he is the one who put it in Donald Trump's heart to build a wall. And I said, okay. I said, why? He said, because, he said, the afflicted that have been deceived and lied to and brought into the country, believing that they're going to have a new life, and they end up in chains of poverty, they end up in chains of slavery, and the women end up in brothels and end up prostituting on the street. And many of those have cried out to God and said, please don't let our families come to this awful place, to this awful time. And God said, I put it upon Donald Trump's heart to build a wall in order to stop this inflow of abuse of the immigrants that are coming into our country. And those immigrants also for our protection that are able to come across the border and eventually maybe cause mayhem. So there is no argument with me as far as the wall is concerned. The wall needs to be built. We go into the book of Nehemiah in the Bible where Nehemiah was serving Xerxes, and he was a cupbearer. And he was sad one day. He had found out the state of affairs in Israel. The wall had been torn down and the buildings, and there was no protection. And the enemy all around was trying to put the Jews under subjection and use them. And Xerxes allowed him to go back to rebuild the wall around Israel, and that became a thing of protection and a thing of prestige. No, we need the wall, not just for protection against people who would come in to abuse the system, but also to protect the innocent people who are being smuggled in from slavery and sexual abuse, and the problems that the children have to go through with, and the shame of it all. And no, it's creating more problem, because what you don't understand is that when some of these people are brought in, it costs them upwards of $80,000 just to be smuggled into our country. And then once they get into Arizona, they come up through South America and up through Mexico and in across our border into Arizona and places. Then there's criminals who run what are called safe houses, but there's nothing safe about it. And what they try to do then is, once the person gets there, they think, oh, we've already spent all of this money, and we're at a safe house, that's what they call them, and then we're going to be taken from that place into a place of employment on somewhere else in the United States. But what they don't understand is that the safe house is just another net. And what those people do, they are going to charge those people an extra several $1,000s. And if that person cannot come up with the money, then they'll get on the phone and call somebody to come and buy that person. Sometimes when young women get to that point, they'll repeatedly rape them and then turn around and sell them. So it's not a nice thing. And so the liberals can say all they want to say, and that's just the devil. It's just Satan using the socialism and the liberals to accomplish his goal through them, and to cause more hurt and harm and to people. And God said He put it on Donald Trump's heart to build this wall for these reasons. God said, I'm answering the prayer of the people who are destitute, the people who have cried out to me of their affliction and their torment. And I have decided to answer their prayer. and I put it on Donald Trump's heart to build a wall. And so God ordained it. God told me he did it. I believe God. Doesn't matter who says or what or anything. I really don't care what you think about what I'm saying today. I'm telling you what God has told me. So Donald Trump is in there for a reason. God told me that he has raised Donald Trump up to expose the corruption and the poison in the United States and the corruption in the world, and to be able to deal with that. Now, here's also what God told me. He said, Donald Trump has aligned himself and aligned America with my people, Israel. And God said that because of that, he said, I'm going to bless Donald Trump. I'm going to bless his family. I'm going to bless his descendants. And I'm going to bless America for shouldering up with my people. For he says, if you bless my people, I will bless you with a blessing. But if you curse my people, I will curse you with a curse. So God says, since your president, whom I have appointed, whose hand of protection, my hand of protection is upon, whose anointing I have placed on him to lead, and I am giving him the wisdom to make the decision. And I'm using him as a tool to expose corruption in the government and in America so that things can be set in order. God says, I'm going to bless America through him as a result of his decision and him taking a stand for what's right. Now, here's what God also told me. He said, all those who stand against my servant will I judge. He said, I will lay them open to the world, that they may be exposed to the world. Do you remember when the Assyrians came in and took over Israel? They shaved their heads and they cut the backside out of their pants so their butt showed as an embarrassment. And everybody got to see it. If you had a dignitary from another country, they came and they got to see it. God says, the people who come against my servant, Donald Trump, he says, I'm going to expose their shame. I'm going to expose their weakness, just like in that day. Now, I don't believe that God's going to allow the seat of their pants to be cut out. But what I'm saying is God's saying that they're going to be open to the world, for the world to see that they are not what they're supposed to be. And God's going to reveal their corruption to the world. And they're going to walk with their head down in shame as a result of that. God said that his hand is upon Donald Trump. He said, I will protect this man. He said, as long as my servant's in office, I will protect this country. I believe right now, if a country fired a missile at the United States, I believe God would destroy the missile before it reached here. God has done things like that in the past, not with missiles. But Donald Trump is where he's at because he's supposed to be there. And the faster our nation understands that, and the faster the people understand that, and they come together in unity. And I think what God is going to do, if what he's showing me is right, by exposing these people, the corruption and the lies and the deceit and the deception that they're normally accustomed to using, that now with Donald Trump in office they can't get away with. And it's causing the shake-up in the media. It's causing the shake-up in government. It looks as if everything is in chaos. But always remember, when you see chaos happening and everything swirling, opportunity abounds. So you just have to see it. So God is using all of this to reshape Donald Trump and bring Donald Trump closer to him, and to have more trust in him and have more faith in him, that is Donald Trump and God. And to reshape Donald Trump into the man that he's supposed to become, that he is now presently evolving into. So all this abrasiveness and all this is to do that, is to expose the corruption in our country, that it can be dealt with. And even that even extends down into the churches. God told me that he's going to sweep the churches. I saw like a man with a broom going through the churches, sweeping the dust out the door. And God said, I'm going to clean the churches, because he said judgment must first begin at my house. Before it can have an impact on what's out there, it's got to start in here. It's got to start in me. It's got to start in you. It's got to start in the church. And so God is going to everything's shaking right now, but it's going to settle. And especially as these corrupted people are caught up in their corruption, exposed, and gotten out of the way, and good people are put in the positions that they're in, then you're going to see this shaking begin to settle. And then the country get in unity behind their leader, with God leading him, and amazing things can happen. So, I'm all for Donald Trump. I voted for him. I don't care who knows it. Most of my family voted for him in Kentucky. He is God's man for the hour. I will stand behind that. I will stand on that, and I believe there are other prophets out there. If they're a real prophet, they'll back up what I'm telling you today. So, this is segment 1.